Hi, welcome to Feel the Boots interview series. I recently had a chance to talk with Elizabeth Gore, president and co-founder of Alice, website helloalice.com, an AI-powered platform for helping businesses with learning, information, networking, funding, and resources. We talked about her experiences at Dell as entrepreneur in residence, as well as her time as a Peace Corps volunteer and how that informs her understanding of entrepreneurism. Her company has been making some big changes in light of the COVID epidemic, helping businesses deal with a radically changing environment. And she has some great thoughts on how businesses can adapt and potentially even thrive in this rapidly evolving environment. In addition to interviews like this, Feel the Boot shares tips and advice for early stage founders every other week as videos on YouTube, podcasts, and blogs at feeltheboot.com. So Elizabeth Gore, welcome to Feel the Boot.
Thank you. Excited to be with you.
So I know a little bit about your background. You've had a somewhat unconventional path to get to where you are. I'd love it if you could share just a little bit about your history and how you became an entrepreneur in residence and what that even means.
Sure, my pleasure. I'm originally from Texas. Very proud to be a Californian now, but I have strong roots in growing up on a cattle and horse ranch. So very stereotypical Texan, to be honest. And went to Texas A&M University. I was very lucky to be the first woman in my family to go to college. And but while I was there, I got very passionate about the importance of community engagement and looking beyond ourselves. And so I got into volunteering and ended up going into the nonprofit industry and had the pleasure of working for Bush 41 in his Thousands Points of Light. If you remember that infamous speech, that ended up spinning out of the White House and becoming basically the volunteer center network for the country, and was proud to work for them and moved to Washington, D.C. And while at DC, I worked with Share Our Strength, and then finally just wanted to get more international and deeper into service and join the Peace Corps. So I was shipped off to Bolivia in South America and picked up a really cute boy that while I was there, James Gore, your supervisor. And so that was 18 years ago. And when we got back, I was networking, looking for a job, and had the incredible opportunity to join service with the United Nations. And usually it's a diplomatic career. You speak 6 languages, but they had just built the United Nations Foundation with Ted Turner's famous $1 billion gift to the UN. And I had the great opportunity to join that team and build out the first public campaigns for the UN, like Nothing But Nets and Girl Up and our Shot at Life campaigns, and travel the world with those. Mostly was in and out of Africa and LATAM. But I will tell you, I got really passionate about small business owners and how entrepreneurs and small business owners were truly, I thought, the backbone of every community. So when I finished my service, I was working a lot with Michael Dell. Actually, he was our first advocate or ambassador for entrepreneurship at the UN. And we were doing some really innovative things, advancing entrepreneurship in emerging countries at the UN at the time. And I got the offer of a lifetime to leave the UN and join Dell Technologies. So I led entrepreneurship there for 3 years. And while I was there, we participated in the largest acquisition in tech history when Dell bought EMC VMware. But my job there was to scout the next best platforms for small business owners and entrepreneurs. And that's when I met my now co-founder, Carolyn Rods, who very fortuitously just happens to be from Bolivia, which is random, but is in Houston. And she had the big idea to build a scalable platform to help small business owners, which is now the company that I've been running for 3 years called Hello Alice. And we can talk about that later, but it's been a wild ride. I still love my Texas roots and could name every breed of cattle you can imagine, but here I am now as a tech entrepreneur.
I'm really curious, with the Peace Corps background, how does that inform the way you approach entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship?
Well, I will say, number one, the Peace Corps was the hardest job I've ever had. That their motto is the hardest job you'll ever love, and it's so true. And you use the word job lightly because obviously you're not paid, but Peace Corps volunteers have to be insanely entrepreneurial. You live at the same level of the individuals that are in your village. So if they're in a hut, you're in a hut. You eat what they eat. You get the same income, and you have to figure out with no money, how are you contributing to that community? And I really akin that to the entrepreneurial spirit. Entrepreneurs, true entrepreneurs, build something out of nothing. That is really the whole idea of starting a business or starting a social enterprise. And you go through significant bumps in the road. It's very isolating to be a business owner. And being a Peace Corps volunteer really parallels that track, which is quite interesting. So, but I do look back and think nothing is that hard. Was that hard, is that hard. And so when I'm going through extreme highs and lows in the business, I kind of think back to that time. But the number one lesson I will say is that I was not a good Peace Corps volunteer until I really believe till my second year, when I really started listening to the community around me instead of telling them what they need. And I really akin that to customers. If you're really listening and really understanding the situation, that's when you'll be, I think, a good entrepreneur.
That's a great insight. So what is Alice doing?
Oh man, so Hello Alice, we built it as a social enterprise. It's built on top of a machine learning platform. So business owners, when they go to helloalice.com, we ask you your stage of growth, physical location, your industry. And with that, we mine very specific recommendations, steps, or guides in your business, whether you've been in business a year or 10 years. We also made a commitment that we would ensure we would find resources for women, people of color, our U.S. veterans, the LGBTQ plus community, and entrepreneurs with disabilities, in addition to our white male counterparts, to find resources to get over barriers that these different demographics tend to have. So prior to COVID-19, we had a community of 100,000 owners that we were helping over the year. And we're a completely free service for our entrepreneurs. The way we make money is we provide a software to enterprise business services that attract and retain small business owners, but we don't share or sell personal data. Now, I will tell you, with COVID-19, we are helping around 150,000 owners a week. So we have 10x the support for small business owners in our company, which has been, exciting for us to be in the right place at the right time to help people when they need it the most, but also probably the biggest stretch anyone in our company has ever gone through in terms of 100-hour work weeks and very little resources and homeschooling kids at the same time. It's been a wild ride, but also one that we are proud to be in.
It's very exciting. I see you're making grants to a lot of these companies as well.
We are. Our data was showing that what we were calling gap funding was desperately needed by small business owners, $5,000, $10,000, particularly those who were pausing their business and were not getting revenue in, but still needed to pay rent, still needed to pay bills. We also have been prioritizing those small business owners who have pivoted and are directly serving COVID response. So am I fixing ventilators? Am I sewing masks? Am I building hand sanitizer? Am I providing mental health resources? Those pivots cost money, and money that's generally not going to be there for a while. So I've been fundraising as fast as I can to distribute these $10,000 grants.
Fantastic. with the companies that Alice is working with, are most of them more sort of, I guess, what you'd call lifestyle small companies as opposed to sort of angel or venture fundable? What's the characteristic of the kind of companies you help?
Sure. 70% of our companies are small businesses, so under 30 employees, and or single service providers. We do have 30% that are high growth. Those tend to be businesses that don't have normal access. So high growth in Omaha versus San Francisco, those that are outside of networks, capital resources, and or we have a very large population of African Americans who are high growth, Native Americans, entrepreneurs with disabilities. So again, those companies that aren't in those traditional networks tend to gravitate towards Hello Alice. And we definitely prioritize servicing them as much as our small businesses.
So, in what ways is it more difficult to be an entrepreneur when you're from one of these underrepresented communities, the women, minorities, groups like that?
Well, the number one is capital. Every shred of data shows that, we can just talk about women. Women are getting 2% of all venture capital. 2. I mean, it's such a wild. Only 18 African American women, period, got over $1 million in venture last year. Not 18%, but 18 people.
Wow.
So, and if you look at bank loans, if you look at lines of credit, capital just tends to be a really tough resource. And, we can unpack that, but, a big part of that, again, is access, it's location, it's the way we tend to access capital. We work really hard with U.S. veterans. I'm the child of an career Air Force daddy. And veterans, very similar. Our U.S. veterans tend to not have those relationships, the networks when they come home. So accessing capital tends to be very difficult. And then finally, networks. I cannot underscore how powerful your network can be. So the relationships you have, the business relationships, client relationships, again, especially first generation business owners, those tend to take time to grow. So, like capital, if you don't have early access to that, it takes time. So our job is to make those connections easier and faster.
You mentioned geography a couple of times. What do you see as the main disadvantages, other than just the network, of being outside of the major sort of entrepreneurial hubs? And are there any advantages to being in some of those other places?
Sure. Well, the exciting thing is digital transformation. I'm a huge advocate of internet, of Wi-Fi, of all things digital, of access, because we are seeing those barriers get lower, which is exciting because of access through the internet. I mean, it's the great, I think, equalizer. The difficulty, if you look at the way capital moves, it tends to really stick within geographies. So if you look at venture, there's really 3 cities, but you can go up to 5 that it sticks and stays. Big part of that is relationships. A big part of it is a lot of fund managers want to be able to see and speak with and get to their owners really quickly. So those clusters of capital tend not to move around, which is tough. Major banking, that's the same thing. I'm a huge proponent of private and small community banks, credit unions, because the more we have those, the more access we have. So again, we go back to this capital and access conversation. The other tends to be, how large is your customer base where you live? And yet another thing that the internet is helping solve, if I'm amazing at clothing and I live in a small city, I can now sell online, which is great. I don't have to depend on somebody walking in my store. So there are disadvantages, again, because of proximity and access, but I do think those barriers are lowering, which is awesome. On the advantage side, I think you can find incredible untapped talent in smaller markets, especially around junior colleges, smaller universities. Even though we're headquartered in Houston and bulk of our employees are in San Fran, I have found incredible talent here in Sonoma County. Our controller CFO is from here. Our head of digital is from here. Our chief of staff is from here. So I've started really looking in my own neighborhood for great talent. And so I think that's very exciting.
I think Sonoma is an interesting place because we're sort of center adjacent, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not 1,000 miles away. We're just an hour outside of the big hub.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll just flag too, the cost of doing business. Obviously, I mean, it is truly unaffordable these days to be headquartered in San Fran. I mean, it's nuts. And so as we've been able to move more folks to our Houston or up here, being in the smaller markets, I think is very helpful.
It's going to be interesting to see how COVID affects this too, where everyone's now so much more telework and finding out that it works pretty well.
It does. And I'm hoping the pendulum doesn't swing back too far on that, particularly for our environment as well.
So what do you see as the biggest challenges for the startups that you're working with? Is it all capital, or are there other big ones?
No, there's others. I mean, right, we built the COVID-19 Business Center, covid19businesscenter.com, and it sits on top of Hello Alice, but we track through data every pain point that our owners are going through. So we can share that with the government, with foundations, with enterprise. And it's hard for me to say in general without mentioning COVID right now, because it's just such the pain point. But in the top 5 pain points for business owners right now, interestingly enough, is anxiety and mental health. It keeps coming up as number 3, number 4, back and forth. And we tried to unpack that a lot. And part of it was the isolation that business owners are going through as it relates to a lot of these tough decisions. Do I pause my business? Do I furlough employees? Do I apply for things? But a lot of it, when we unpacked it, was the anxiety of their employees, the amount of time they're taking on HR issues, on support, on the unknown. So that, I thought that was an interesting thing to share today, because we popped up a mental health resource center on Hello Alice, which we've never, I think, would have thought of before now. Rent relief is a big thing that people are asking for, to just pause rent or amortize it over the following year. That's come up a lot on, frankly, every size of business, which I thought was really interesting. The great race for talent was the big issue prior to COVID. I think that's going to be very interesting, whether you're a small business hiring minimum wage, or you're all the way up to highly skilled labor, or you're up to advanced degrees. Talent has been one of the number 1 pain points of hiring good people across the board in all 50 states. And now, we'll see how the pendulum is going to swing there. Finally, keeping up with technology. I'm, again, a big proponent of technology, but small business owners tend to lag a little bit on, what's the next best QuickBooks or Zoom or Salesforce. I think we could all do a better job making technology more accessible and educational for our business owners. So those are some of the pain points that we've seen either prior or during COVID.
Is there some piece of top advice that you find yourself giving to, founders or entrepreneurs, the thing that comes up over and over again?
Well, right now, I am telling everybody that you need to rebuild your business plan from scratch. And I don't care if you were closed during this, if you were open during this, if you've had more customers, less customers, if you have money, less money. We literally are going into a different planet after this. And so I'm telling people to take a step back and act like you are completely relaunching your company. What do your customers need? How are they going to shop? What are they looking for? What does digital transformation look like right now? Are you internet enabled? What kind of capital do you have? What is the timing of reopening? If someone said you could reopen tomorrow, is anyone going to walk into your front door? Should you stay closed another month to save that money? So everyone right now needs to rebuild and relook at their business plan. And it's very hard as a business owner. I know this. There's so many sacred things that you plan for, you're excited about, you're budgeted for, you have to let those go and look fully fresh perspective.
Yeah, yeah, clean sheet of paper. I think
Yeah.
that is a great piece of advice. How has having small children affected your work as an
Oh my
entrepreneur,
gosh.
especially now?
Well, I have a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old, and they are truly the love of my life. James and I had children later, and so they've just been awesome. Um, they're super inspiring to me. They are also my break. I would probably work till midnight if I didn't have them. So they've taught me a lot of control, responsibility, taking a break from work. Now it's a challenge. I just wrote an ink column on how do you manage your business and your children right now. We have to have patience and grace and know that some things are going to fall through their cracks, whether it's my work or their schoolwork. I'm very lucky to have a great teammate in Jimmy on this. But I think everything right now has to flex. And I think the quote I used is, you cannot usually I was about growing my children and growing my business. Now I'm about everything just surviving. So, and there are very hard days and there are days that are okay. But they are my priority. I'm very lucky to have a co-founder. Her kids are my same age. Her kids are her priority. If something has to fall through the cracks, it's going to be on the business side. I don't know if our investors might not want to hear that, but it is the case right now. And we also want to provide that to our employees, that whether it's elder care, their children, their partner, right now is a different time. So, but it's cool. My daughter Opal, she says every day that she wants to own Alice someday. It's really neat that they've grown up with this business and they've seen their mommy, build a company, which is cool.
Where did that name come from, Alice?
Oh man! So when Carolyn and I, my co-founder, it took us 2 years to build Alice before we launched. It was just the two of us building, and we both had 2 kids each during all that. And we realized we both fell in love with the original Lewis and Carroll novel, Alice in Wonderland. And if you go back and read it, Alice is such an entrepreneur. She has to convince people to do things. The White Rabbit is, we akin that to profit. You're always chasing profit. She's always out of time. It's just, if you would look at it in the lens of a business owner, we just laughed and laughed about it. So we decided to name Alice Alice.
I love it. I never would have occurred to me that was the origin of the name.
Isn't that funny?
That is great. I'm going to use that analogy, I think.
Yeah, I'll send you the call. I did a column on it and I'll shoot it over to you. It's pretty fun.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah.
So other than Hello Alice, are there other resources that you think more entrepreneurs should be aware of?
Oh, for sure. I'm actually a big Chamber of Commerce fan. The National Chamber of Commerce and the National Chamber of Commerce Foundation has the best news source for small business owners on what's going on in Congress. Their blog, which I have linked on our COVID center, is just they update it every 3 hours to keep you up to date on the CARES Act, what's happening there. So I'm a big fan, and then I'm a fan, obviously, of local chambers, like the Santa Rosa Metro Chamber, the Healdsburg Chamber. So I'm a big chamber fan and proponent overall. The other thing is joining networks that are appropriate to you. So join an industry group, or join, if you're a veteran, join Bunker Labs for Vets. I think business owners get a lot out of building their networks and their customer base by being in networks. So I'm a big fan of those. And then finally, I'm a voracious reader. I read Inc. all the time, and then I read the Cliff Notes of the Harvard Business Review on their best tips. So I think, but I'll tell you, the best resource you've got are peers. So asking questions to other people in your industry or in your same stage of growth, I think, is the number one thing you can do.
I agree. I think it's fantastically important. As a really hardcore introvert, that's one of the things I'm worst at doing, but
Yeah,
I
yeah. You can
fully
you can you
appreciate the
can
importance
you
of
can
balancing
force
that.
fun on yourself.
Are there anything else that that I haven't asked you that I should have?
I would just say this is not an easy time for entrepreneurs and small business owners, but at the same time, it might be the best opportunity to pivot and slide in where big enterprise companies can't. So also look at it as an opportunity, and we're here for y'all. The COVID-19 Business Center, anything we could do to help, questions you have, we want to be as supportive as possible. So hang in there. Don't make decisions in isolation. You reach out to folks and get the help you need.
Excellent. Yeah, disruption, it does harm to a lot of places, but it also opens a lot of space for
It
new
does.
opportunities.
It certainly does.
Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth. This has been a real pleasure. I appreciate you giving us some of your time.
Oh, thank you. And we'll look forward to seeing this when it comes out. Let us know so we can cross promote.
Absolutely will do.
All
Thanks.
right. Stay safe there in Windsor.
Thanks for watching this episode of Feel the Boot. I hope you found it useful and interesting, and if so, do the usual, like, subscribe, ring the bell. But I would particularly appreciate it if you would share this with other entrepreneurs that you know. I'm hoping that Feel the Boot becomes a community that makes all of us better and more successful. Till next time, ciao.